Suzanne Kellner-Zinck with Donning Visions Hypnosis to speak about why some people are willing to find alternative ways to regain their health and others will not. It's a particularly interesting subject, actually, because it is not as straightforward as one may think. There are some people, such as myself, who are not willing to take no for an answer. Meaning that a person in authority is going to sit there and tell you that their way is the only way. And if you do not listen to them, you do not do what they say, your whole life is going to be ruined. And this is certainly what happened many years ago when I was diagnosed with what was known as manic depression back in the late 1980s. It was rather difficult to contend with, to tell you the truth. I did all the things that I was told to do. Was very medication compliant because at some point it did actually stabilize the moods. But that wasn't good enough for me. You see, I didn't want to be, shall we say, figuratively married to a psychiatrist for the rest of my life, nor on medications, which I knew from being in nursing school back in the late 1990s, could become very toxic to the body as you build up resistance. And I certainly had seen this in some of my clients when I was working in mental health before I ever learned anything about hypnotism. My main goal was to be able to live freely, to be able to not have to have a psychiatrist, to not have my whole life be revolving around some diagnosis. And quite frankly, I wanted the same for my clients. This idea, this notion that people are constantly these days talking about, oh, I'm depressed and I can't do this and I'm anxiety ridden or I'm neurodiverse or whatever the hell it is that's going on with them. You know, it's not really something that most people want to hear. Most people just want to get to know you for who you are and make an assessment based on how you come across. And they may find you to be a highly creative person. I've found mentally ill people in particular to be super imaginative, creative, and in some cases funny, and definitely very insightful. And interestingly enough, the sicker they were, meaning more comorbidities, meaning more illnesses, the more insightful they were about the people who were charged with taking care of them. So it's not a matter of having to have people dance around you and your problems, unless you need some kind of adaptation for school or work, in which case that would be totally appropriate. In the general population, just be yourself and make friends with the people who find you cool. That is the deal. But that's a little bit of an aside. The real purpose for this particular live is to also talk about the people who aren't willing to find an alternative way. And those are the people like I was just talking about. They hold on to their diagnosis as if it's some, I don't know, reward. Maybe that's too much. Something that stands out about them that they have to let the whole world know about. It's like so close to their identity that they don't have an identity without these labels that the psychiatric world has placed upon them. But this is the deal, folks. The Diagnostic Statistical Manual, DSM, when it was originally published in 1957, had a little over 100 diagnoses. By the time the DSM-5, not even the 5R, the 5 came out, it had almost 300. There's so much overlap between the different symptoms and different diagnoses that there's a lot of misdiagnosis. I was just reading actually a reply to one of my comments I made somewhere in my social media about the fact that he knows 6 people who are misdiagnosed with mental health issues. And this is my reply. Exactly what I just said. There's just too many overlapping symptoms that differential diagnosis has become almost impossible in too many cases, not to mention the fact that they started creating diagnoses to find medications to prescribe to take care of them. In fact, I had a very sweet and honest professor in my Master's of Instructional Design and Technology course of study explain to me, after I had raised this issue exactly in one of my posts for class, that she had gone to a mental health provider because she had lost a child and she wanted some healing work done around that. But she was very clear, this particular therapist, that she didn't want any diagnosis placed in her chart because it was a normal human response to having a loss. To which I say, amen. You don't need to label everything. We just need to know what the root cause is and heal it. That's what I do in my work anyway. Not allowed to give diagnosis, not licensed, never will be. So I think the difference truly comes down to, are you sick enough of being sick, or sick enough of being stuck long enough to realize that you no longer want to live this way? And then if you add to it other things that you'd love to do in your life that are very difficult if you hold on to the old way of doing things, such as me wanting to travel the world, and certainly at that time move out to California. I'd been there many times for trainings in the past and wanted to give it a shot. Didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but at least I don't have any regret for not trying it, which is a whole nother bunch of wisdom I learned from one of my most favorite elder clients I ever had, Millie Aiken, long gone from this world. She was 95 when I worked with her back in the late 1990s when I was going through nursing school. And she said, you never want to live with any resentment and you never want to live with any regrets. I teach that to all of my clients. It's so important. So it's a mindset thing. I hate those words though, because mindset is so overused, but in a way it kind of is, because it really depends on what do you feel you want to be in this life. Are you okay with how things are? Are you curious about what other opportunities may be out there for healing? Let me tell you, there's so many things I've learned about in terms of healing, so many things I never knew even existed for my 2 years on Alignable and just talking to all these different people who got to the point in their lives, many of them with pain, and in terms of physical pain, or gastrointestinal problems and things of this nature, chronic issues that the medical doctors don't know how to really deal with. And they're able to heal them with so many other ways. Be it doing sound healing, using sound to heal, or using acupuncture or herbs or nutrition. Many things can be solved with nutrition, let me tell you, a lot of things. And we need to realize that if we're willing to think deeper, be curious, and try different things, we may very well find the thing that finally releases us from what has been holding us down for the rest of our lives. I think this is really important for us to recognize. And yes, the alternative ways you're going to pay out of pocket to get these things done. The medical world is paid for with insurance, uses conventional so-called evidence-based research. I call it so-called because there's plenty of research that talks about how the world of research has changed and where they play with the numbers, they get rid of the volunteers that don't fit what they want to show. They only publish the positive results, never the negatives, so you're only getting one half of the story on any given topic. And even their conclusions many times don't really reflect what the statistics show, even if they're being relatively honest with the numbers they're using, because you can cast the numbers all different ways, relative risk versus absolute risk being one of them. Absolute risk is the only thing that matters. So I hope you found this to be really helpful, because I want people to recognize the fact that they're worth spending the money to get the help necessary to heal and live a very fantastic life, a life better than you could ever imagined. I tell my clients all the time, when you're stuck in it, you don't really understand what's on the other side. But I promise you, if you're willing to do the work, and I can only facilitate it, they have to do the work, you will have amazing lives. And the testimonials on my website prove that to be true based on the stories of their healing. These folks are my heroes, especially the younger ones, and a couple of the older ones who had really, really difficult lives and lived for decades feeling like crap. A medical system that didn't know how to help them out. So with that, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time. Bye-bye.